You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please.
Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Coomer, and as chair, I now call to order the meeting of the directors of the Atlantic Yards Community Development Corporation for Monday, June 29, 2026. I'd like to note for the record, this meeting is being webcast. I'd also like to apologize for being late. The directors have received the relevant materials in advance of today's meeting and are free to ask questions at any time. Consistent with the policy of our parent corporation, we welcome public comment on the items on today's agenda. After each item is presented and any comments are received from the directors, will allow any members of the public to attending today to provide comments. All comments should be limited to 2 minutes and should only address the items under consideration. Also note for the record, the public was given the opportunity to comment on today's agenda by submitting their written comments by 3 p.m. yesterday. The record, we received one written comment. It's received from the public, provided to the directors, and be posted to the website. You'll note that the final item on our agenda today is titled Public Comments. At that time, we'll have an opportunity for any members of the public intending to provide comment on non-agenda related matters. Please keep in mind, it's our intention to try to conclude today's meeting by 4 p.m. And since I do anticipate that we'll be going into what will probably be a lengthy executive session, during the meeting, we'll see, depending on how we're doing on time, we'll make a brief opportunity for public comments before we depart for that executive session so that those who want to comment don't have to wait around for the end of that session. I'd ask the directors whether anyone has any potential conflict of interest with respect to any of the items on the agenda. So please make an appropriate disclosure on the record at this time. Be sure you can recuse yourself from any discussion or vote with regard to such items. Hearing none, our first order of business is the approval of the minutes of the directors' meeting of May 28, 2026. Are there any comments or questions or amendment in it?
So moved.
I'll now entertain a motion to approve the minutes. There's been a motion. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. Before I ask Anna Price here to our ESD Senior Vice President of Community Relations to continue with the agenda and provide us with some project updates, I'd like to just make a few comments and provide information both to members of the board as well as public about a process that we undertook that's been undertaken over the past week or so. Those who are regular attendees of these meetings, you're really a select group. If you are such a regular attendee, will recall that there at a number of points there have been discussions about this board having a separate budget for its own consultants to exercise its oversight role and advisory role, particularly with respect to the financial feasibility of proposed transactions. And in a perfect world, we would have such a budget. But some of you may have noticed that we don't live in a perfect world. And therefore, we, over the past week, have pursued what might be characterized as the next best thing. We have a number of new board members, and one in particular who we're lucky to have is Mark Yard to my right, who has deep experience in particularly the financial aspects of affordable housing development. And he has, along with me, conducted a couple meetings this past week, first with the independent consultants that were engaged by ESD to assess the financial feasibility. And I participated in that meeting as well. And then we also met with the members of the new development team as well to have an opportunity to ask questions. These were confidential meetings. They're going into many matters that are sensitive and private financial details relating to the proposed project. But I think it was a very good process. And it may continue to some degree during the executive session, but I wanted to make sure that there was transparency and people were aware that these meetings were undertaken. We'll proceed, and there may be further process along those lines as we move forward. Certainly as we move forward into the regulatory approval phase. So with that, I will now ask Anna to give us her updates.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. All right. As you can all see here, we have a busy rest of the year in store, as though we haven't already had a busy year to date on the project. We are going to be bringing to you the development team you see here at the table today to discuss the latest on the proposed project program that will be going into the environmental review. We also are letting you know here that the MOU will be, as we've always said, will be executed in July. As well as we are going to have a town hall, a virtual town hall, with a similar presentation to what you're getting today, but recognizing that there are members of the public that would need an evening meeting, may want to be online, and we'll have a Q&A as well during it, at the end of it, to afford people an opportunity to ask questions. That will also be a presentation in that on just the basics of participating in an environmental review process. We really wanted to do our best to explain to people where the milestones are and how they can participate and share their thoughts on the proposals. So that will be on July 13th, and we will send you all the flyer to send around and the links to sign up. We appreciate it, and we appreciate your help spreading the word. And as I've mentioned, the environmental review, that will be beginning the third quarter through the fourth quarter of this year. We will be going back out, and again, please send your recommendations. We will be going back out to local community groups, tenant associations, neighborhood associations, affinity groups, interested parties, trying to spread the word again about what's the latest on the project and how to stay involved on the environmental review and share their opinions there. We will be releasing the draft scope of work, of course, and we also will be going back to the public for more detail, as I previously mentioned, on public design. A lot of people have a lot of thoughts on the streetscape, on the uses of the open space, et cetera, and we'll be going back for public input on that as well.
Okay.
That's the town hall. We will send it around to you all as well.
Are there any questions or comments with regard to that presentation?
What?
Go ahead.
Thanks. The public hearing and the draft scope of work, any sense of when that might be?
I mean, we're looking at like September.
Okay.
Or October.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what's next here?
I just wanted to update one more thing that was relevant to what the chair brought up at the top. We'd had requests around the budget. And as the chair explained, there was particular questions around the financial, the possible retention of financial consultants. And we have really done a lot of work to try to ensure the board has an experienced view into the financials as best we can during an active negotiation with some proprietary information. When it comes to the budget itself, this year's budget is really, as with past year's budget, but especially this in terms of the amount of hours for the team, as with past budgets, this is really the full line of the 250,000 is really spoken for with staff time. As you can see, we have many team members here, and they've been working very hard on all aspects of the project, the public outreach, as well as the negotiations and conversations. And so the existing budget as it stands is really spoken for, as it has been in all the years of the AYCDC.
The rest of this.
I'd like to
Ask Joe McDonald from the Service Group, the leader of the new development team, to give us a presentation on where the project plan stands.
Sure. So my name is Joseph McDonald, managing partner of Cirrus Workforce Housing. I think most people on the board know myself. My partner, Anthony Tatora from Elcor. Our joint venture is the permitted developer of Atlantic Yards. Wouldn't mind going to the next.
Yes, Joe, you're going to have to raise your voice. Sorry.
Raise the voice? Okay.
Yeah. I'm wondering if it depends.
We move where we are.
Well, no, to flip over so that you're addressing so that the public can hear you better. I don't know. Does that work? Where we are. Thanks, Joe.
No problem. Can everybody hear me now?
Yeah.
Loud enough?
That's better. Yeah.
So We haven't spoken in front of the board in some time now. I think it's been a few months.
Yes.
We've been working quite a bit over the last 9 to 12 months. So I think some people sort of wonder what takes so long. What is everybody working on? And we've had a group of, we think, very, very talented professionals. We'll go through who those are, going through many different iterations of what could Atlantic Yards be, kind of within the structure of the development principles that we shared with you in our first meeting, right? More housing, more affordability, more open space, in a way that's feasible. And one thing I wanted to kind of emphasize before we go through these slides, what we're showing you today is not iteration 1. It's not iteration 20. It's iteration 40 or 50, right? We considered many different ways to go about delivering this project. We thought about effectively pushing the buildings down. The challenge with that is you cover more of these tracks, and some of the costs and the risks of doing that in a project like this are not exactly intuitive as they would be on kind of a normal project. We thought about actually putting more density on the site and pushing it higher. There are challenges with that as well, right? And what we've come to here is really kind of grounded in this idea of delivering the various community benefits that we've all talked about, and we'll talk about what we think those should look like as quickly as possible within a feasible program that can actually get built. We've also had the constraint of trying to make sure that we actually leveraged the dollars that Greenland put into the ground. We've talked about that's about $1 billion. And some of those layouts are relatively fixed. What Greenland put into the ground was actually not just dollars, it was also time. So we actually considered building both platforms at the same time. What you actually realize on a site like this that may not be sort of intuitive from looking at it is it's not just the time to construct, it's also the time to plan. So with 1120, we can move fairly quickly, and we'll talk about that timeline. 1121, for example, Greenland spent 3 years permitting 1120. And so with respect to 1121, if we wanted to actually go in parallel, it would actually be slower, right? And so I think the positive of what comes out of all this is when we came to you originally, we had certain sort of assumptions about things that we could do that we thought made Atlantic Yards better, that we could decouple B6 from the platform, that we could build that in parallel, not in sequence, that there were various things that could sort of deal with the challenges. Those have all been confirmed from an architectural and engineering perspective. Those are no longer assumptions, right? I think the challenge with Atlantic Yards, and one of the things we've coined, is we have very, very talented people with lots of resources making lemonade out of lemons. It is a very, very constrained site that we have to deal with. Otherwise, it won't ever be delivered. And so what we are putting forth to you today is what we think is an exercise in sort of design and program that responds to those, right? Rather than tries to sort of fight them, that tries to kind of will the community benefits into the site in a way that's feasible and more resilient and can be delivered sort of not in 7 to 10 years, but in sort of the short term. Going to the next page. Right. And so we've been involved in a community engagement process. Some people here may not realize that actually started before we were the permitted developer. So the first meetings on this started actually in 1Q, 2Q of 2025. And we've had many different, sort of types and forms of meetings, both public and private. We've had various sort of community sessions. We had the online community engagement report. Atlantic Yards is something that's evolved and is fairly controversial. I think some people are actually borderline emotional about it for good reason. And what we actually saw in
over the border,
what we saw in certain of these meetings was, as we sort of went through and we dissected the data, we're a very data-driven organization, right? And so we actually tried to cut things by race, by income, whether you live in the zip code, whether you don't live in the zip code. There were many different things people wanted or didn't want, but there were certain themes that sort of stood out and came through and were consistent. We tried to list those out here. So it's very clear that there was a need for affordability across what I would call the spectrum. When you actually look at the data that came back, it was overwhelmingly for moderate, right? One of our development principles is mixed income housing across the income spectrum. And what we're going to show you today is very low income and low income being about 75% of those income restricted units, 40% more units overall, and trying to deliver the deepest affordability early, but also deliver that affordability mostly on block 1120 and site 5, which is done in the very short term. We also heard, and I think this was fairly overwhelming, people wanted that delivered in the framework of a vertical community where the families who actually lived in those units, had the units designed for them, had access to the right services, access to open space, and done in a thoughtful way. And so we thought a lot about the open space. When you actually look at what we are proposing, we have about 2 acres on 1120, and that open space is now uninterrupted and can be delivered in a rational way. The original plan never included that. So with that, I'll turn it over to partner Anthony to talk a little bit more about the community takeaways.
Thanks, Joe. Again, my name is Anthony Totoro. I'm a partner with Elcor. Good afternoon, everyone. We'll take the next two categories, streetscape and infrastructure quality of life, together because there's a lot of overlap. So by and large, we heard from the community the need for safer streets, more greenery, and concerns about wind. In response to this, our proposal incorporates a variety of streetscape improvements, adding trees, lighting, widening sidewalks, and we're making suggested improvements to crosswalks that will require DOT approval. We've actually already started those conversations. Wind mitigation will also be a focus as we advance the design process. As for community space, we're proposing a variety of community facility spaces on blocks 1120 and 1121, including the potential for a revised urban room concept on B5, an intergenerational community center in B6, which again will be the first building to deliver, and additional flexible community space in B10. With respect to the retail, we're proposing a comprehensive retail strategy that's focused on essential services for community feedback and activating the ground floor on both the northern and southern faces of the buildings. The goals of both improving the pedestrian experience along Atlantic and integrating the retail into the open space. More about that later. We're also proposing smaller retail bays to attract local businesses, again, consistent with community feedback. I hope by now that we've demonstrated our commitment to transparency, and we look forward to future community engagement and ongoing dialogue with this board. I'm now going to turn it back to Joe to cover our proposed affordability program.
So this slide shows certain key statistics about phase 2 by the numbers, but I think what's important when you look at this slide is actually to contextualize sort of where the project was and where we are today. So I mentioned before that our meetings on this project actually started in 1Q, 2Q of 2025, not in 1Q of this year or 4Q of last year. And I remember sort of vividly one of those meetings, and some of the people on the board were actually in that meeting. One of the kind of wise old sages and the people who have been involved in this project for a very long time said to me, "Why on earth do you want to be involved in Atlantic Yards? The project is hopelessly stuck. It actually broke Bruce Ratner. You better know what you're taking." They then went on to say, "You better look at this in a totally different way," which I think is what we've done. And so, when we entered this project, one of the things we saw, which I referred to at one point as a no-brainer, was one of the only places in New York City where most of the pre-development work, a lot of the foundational and infrastructure work had been done, where you could deliver about 900 units. That doesn't actually exist today. Most of the easy sites to develop in New York City were done a long time ago. That's one of the reasons we actually have a housing shortage. Other things is that it's very, very difficult to find transportation-oriented sites where you can deliver this type of housing and do it sort of relatively quickly. Another official sort of mentioned to me, you can't really build affordable housing above rail yards. It doesn't work. Haven't you seen Hudson Yards? And so we've spent a lot of time kind of making sure that this is feasible, and we're confident that it is. And I think when you look at it in that context of in the last 12 months, sort of going from something where people were talking about completion versus litigation, and now talking about what are finer details into how we get this done after having all that work done, we've actually made an extraordinary amount of progress together with ESD and various of the community stakeholders. And what that really means is more affordable or income restricted housing, 75% of that housing going to low and very low income tenants and families. We're very focused on 30+% family sized units and actually programming the buildings to work for those types of families. MWB participation of over $1 billion, 100% union built, and significant economic impact. More importantly, we're talking today about a kickoff on housing groundbreaking. So this would be 1120 and B6 and or Site 5. We've been very transparent about that sequence in 2028. That has people living in these buildings in 2031, right? So fairly ambitious goals, but we actually stand in a place where we can do that, given the work that has been done today. Going to the next page, I'll turn it over to Anthony.
Thanks, Joe. Total proposed revised GPP by the numbers. As Joe mentioned earlier, through the master planning process, we've been able to validate many, if not all, of the assumptions we had coming into the deal last year. As a result, our proposal is very similar to what we presented at the public workshops last year. That's great news. Just going through the list here, we're proposing to increase bulk by 20%, resulting in approximately 2,400 additional residential units. The original plan was approved for 336,000 square feet of office space, but given the need for housing, we're proposing to reallocate that bulk to housing units. Regarding parking, the requirement is the same, although it will be studied as part of the EIS. And it's also important to note that 760 of the 1,000 spaces have already been delivered. Average height, again, we're proposing to reduce the size of the footprints on the 1120 and 1120 blocks, which results in taller buildings, but an additional half acre of open space with improved connectivity across the open space. Again, we'll go over more about that later. It's important to note that if you include B8 in this average, which we've eliminated the building on B8, if you include B8 in that average, the average height is reduced to 470 feet, just over 100 feet taller than the current plan. Regarding maximum height, we're proposing a 2-tower scheme on Site 5. We actually held one tower facing 4th Avenue at 570 feet, which actually pushed up the other tower to just under 800 feet. While at the higher end of the downtown Brooklyn range, building is significantly shorter than Brooklyn Tower, which is over 1,000 feet tall, and shorter than the proposed project at 395 Flatbush, which was recently approved at 840 feet. Next slide, please. Now zooming into our phase 2 proposal specifically. Again, the increase in bulk just discussed results in 5,600 total residential units across phase 2, over 80% of which are rental. Over 20,000 square feet of community facility space and approximately 140,000 square feet of retail. 240 parking spaces on Site 5 per the current plan, which again was studied as part of the EIS. And again, we're proposing to locate our tallest building at just under 800 feet. Slide, please. Shifting back to Joe to go over our
So this slide lays out illustrative income bands and what could be achieved in the averages which are contained in the MOU. In November 2025, when we had our first public meeting, we had put out the thought around basically mixed income housing across income restricted income bands. I think there was either miscommunication or misinformation. I think some folks thought that we intended this all to be 130% of AMI and above. And what we are committed to doing is actually serving. When you actually look at Atlantic Yards, you look at 535 Carlton, for example, they received per unit the most actual housing applications from moderate income folks. And when you actually look at sort of the numbers around, this is HUD census data, folks who are suffering from rent burden, it's roughly 20 to 30% of those households in these community boards. When we look at these numbers, what we see at 100 to 120% of AMI is a high school teacher, right, or a nurse. At 40 to 60% of I, you're basically serving a home healthcare worker or a waitress with a child into a 2-bedroom. And what I would also point out on this page is when you look at the left-hand side, we brought the deepest affordability first in the largest buildings. So you'll notice that Site 5 and B6 are about 1,000 rental units. Those are at 60% of AMI. And the left side of this page, which is really Site 5 and 1120, B7 and left, delivers about 873 units. That's close to the 876, which was promised, not in the whole project, but with respect to the first platform. This is a proposal that we've spent a lot of time on. We think it is responsive to the community engagement. And more importantly, we think it's something that is feasible, gets built, and makes space within this development for New Yorkers across all income bands.
Next slide, please. Shifting to the master plan concept design, as Joe mentioned, we've assembled a best-in-class team of local professionals. APF as master plan architect and WSP as structural and MEP engineer, years of experience with this project, were instrumental in advancing the 1120 platform design, which is largely complete. We've since brought on local Brooklyn landscape architect Michael Van Valkenburg and Associates, who, as many of you may know the firm, NVVA, to assist with the open space and public realm design. You may be familiar with their great work at Brooklyn Bridge Park and the Brooklyn Botanical Garden, among other local projects. In addition, we brought on a placemaking consultant of Place who specializes in placemaking design for large transit-oriented and arena-adjacent development projects. This work involves integrating the retail, streetscape, public realm, and ground floors of the buildings into one cohesive functional design at the ground floor. It takes a team of this caliber to work around the significant constraints and challenges presented by this site, but we're excited about where we landed. Next slide, please. On to those challenges and constraints. And continuing the lemonade from lemon metaphor that Joe had mentioned in his introduction, the slide is intended to illustrate many of the key physical constraints with an overlay of our proposed building footprints. We've talked a lot in prior workshops and meetings about prior investments in foundations and utility infrastructure, all of which are highlighted in pink, as well as the solid ground sites that are highlighted in gray. But what we haven't talked as much about are the fixed platform design constraints. Some examples. You can see the MTA access ramp on B5 shaded in purple, top left-hand corner of the screen. This provides Long Island Railroad access to the train yard from 6th Avenue. To maintain necessary clearances, it also results in a 20-foot elevation change at the ground floor of B5. All of that must be coordinated with the building's massing and design. In addition, highlighted in green are a series of mechanical ventilation shafts serving the 1120 platform that need to be coordinated with the massing of the buildings and the open space design. As you can see, as part of the move to shift B6 and B7 to solid ground to the north, we were able to locate the buildings just north of those shafts. In addition to the shafts, we also had to work around Long Island Railroad's future fire command station, highlighted in yellow, at the bottom right-hand corner of the top of 1120. This will be located at the southeast corner of 1120 and had to be coordinated when coming up with our open space concepts. I'm going to hand it back to Joe to go over the evolution of the plan over time.
So I don't want to dwell on this page, but if you look at the left, that's the original Frank Gehry design. And while I think the design is fairly dynamic and sort of interesting to look at, I think like architects probably like the design quite a lot. It does two things. One, it successfully covers the yards north to south, making it extraordinarily expensive to build. And it also, by doing so, creates effective courtyards or backyards with respect to the open space. It also doesn't lay out well for the tenants for a bunch of different reasons, we think. What we've done is come up with a new approach. That approach basically pushes the bulk along Atlantic Avenue, a wide street, which makes sense. In doing so, it actually lowers the lot coverage, creating more total open space and more uninterrupted open space. It's also much more buildable on a compressed timeline and more efficient to build. Going to the next slide. Right. And so this is the outcome of the various moves that we have made. Right. We thought about sort of pushing that bulk down, which has kind of the effect of eliminating certain portions of the open space. But we think that this is a sort of reasonable place to land. Going to the next slide. Right. And then this is the overall site plan. We're looking at it in plan view. We purposely faded out the open space. So we spent a lot of time thinking about with MVVA. There's various kind of community benefits, various community needs, playgrounds, shaded groves, active uses, passive uses. We spent a lot of time confirming that the open space has the capacity to effectively host all of those things, to get people into and out of it, right? This is next to a stadium that actually presents certain challenges that not being next to a stadium doesn't present from a quality of life perspective. And we've actually brought in a specialist consultant to help us think through that. But the reason that we faded it out here, we haven't landed all of those things. There's a further kind of set of community engagement to go through what that should look like when it's finally done. We can say, however, we do feel very good that we can fit in effectively all of the different kind of aspects of that open space that came through fairly consistently in the community engagement. Going to the next slide.
So shifting from plan to elevations. This slide just further illustrates our strategy of shifting density to the solid ground sites on Site 5, B6, and B7. As you'll see, these moves also result in a contextual skyline that aligns with the higher density and taller buildings found in downtown Brooklyn to the west, then steps down to the east. Interesting, when looking at the project as a whole, AIM up to the east contemplates comparable densities along Atlantic, given their much higher lot coverage ratios. Next slide, please. As we know, the density and heights of the buildings in this area have changed dramatically since 20 years ago. Again, what we're proposing is a contextual skyline that steps down from the taller building heights found in downtown Brooklyn as you move to the east. As I mentioned earlier, we're proposing a 2-tower scheme at Site 5, one tower held at 570 feet, which pushes the other tower up to just under 800 feet. While at the higher end of the downtown Brooklyn height range, as I mentioned earlier, the building is significantly shorter than Brooklyn Tower and the recently approved 395 Flatbush. The balance, as you can see from the chart on the screen, the balance of the proposed phase 2 buildings on 1120 and 1121 are largely in range with neighboring buildings, with the tallest buildings located on B6 and B7, where it makes the most sense to build, given the ability to build on solid ground.
So this slide is showing various of the heights and bulk that Anthony alluded to from the Atlantic side. So the average height on Site 5 is 685 feet. We did bring one of the towers down, which pushes one up to just under 800 feet, fairly in line with our original presentation. If you look at average height along the platform itself, you're at about 560 feet. If you were to include B8 in that math, you'd actually be at 470 feet. And we were fairly focused on making sure that we were stepping down as we hit sort of B10, which I think is a 10 to 11 FAR equivalent if we were to look at it. Going to the next slide. So this is
just picking up on what Joe was just describing. Based on the 3D bird's eye view of the phase 2 skyline, you can begin to appreciate our thoughts with respect to building placement, facade and podium articulation, as well as the building's relationship to Atlantic Avenue and the integration of open space. While tall, it's important to note that these buildings will not simply be a collection of housing units. They will reflect what Elkhorn Sirius do best, which is delivering vibrant residential communities that will include, as discussed, 30% family-sized units across a variety of unit types and direct access for all residents to parks and open space, a variety of interior and exterior amenity spaces that are flexible and responsive to family needs, safer streets and mobility, and integrated retail for essential services, as well as community facility spaces, among other things. Also, you can begin to see the potential for a 2-tower scheme on Site 5 that we've oriented towards the wide streets, Flatbush Avenue and 4th Avenue specifically. The goal of that was to preserve the existing residential scale of Pacific Street to the greatest extent possible. The proposed bulk of Site 5 also represents a 6% less bulk than what was originally contemplated for Site 5 and B1 combined. In addition, Site 5 is almost entirely residential versus the mixed-use building originally contemplated in B1.
Yeah, so this is Site 5 in plan. What I would point out here is we have pushed the bulk along the wider streets, right? So the taller tower is pushed along Atlantic Avenue and Flatbush. What we plan or what we envision would be a podium which is sort of townhouse in scale, with materiality similar to a townhouse versus what's there now, the Models and the PC Richards, right? Which sort of you look at on that street. We also think that the entrances on Pacific Street should be purely the residential entrances. And people here may be aware that the DOT is looking at potentially making Pacific a shared street. That's something that we're a big fan of, and we've already planned for that. And so we're thinking about interior loading docks so we don't have trucks idling on Pacific Street all day. We'd also like to see street trees basically running down Pacific Street, which sort of fill it out and make it look more analogous to the other side. There's a lot of design work here to be done, right? But we think that this actually will help maintain the residential character of Pacific Street. And, you know, versus a PC Richards and a Models could actually be viewed in some ways as a positive. Going to the next slide.
So this slide illustrates our strategy of activating the building on both the north and south faces to ensure, one, integration with Atlantic Avenue, and two, the open space, as well as the surrounding community. You'll note that most retail spaces treated in here provide access to both Atlantic and the open space. And consistent with community feedback, the goal is authentic Brooklyn scale retail that could accommodate small private business, not big box retail, as you can see by the size of these proposed retail gates. You could also see how we're trying to improve both east-west and north-south connectivity with the arena and the surrounding area consistent with the principles of the original plan. Next slide, please. As Joe mentioned, while the open space program has not been finalized, the 5.5 acres of open space on 1120 and 1121 provides the capacity for a variety of active and passive uses consistent with the current plan. Some of the program elements that we are exploring include generous entry plazas, focus on connectivity, improved streetscapes and better access to streets, event lawns that could be used to provide a variety of programming, more shaded areas with seating, sports courts, play spaces for children, picnic areas, and water features, among others. Next slide, please. We also heard the community's desire for community facility spaces that serve residents of all ages. In response to that, we're proposing several spaces that could provide a variety of services. First, a revamped urban room concept in B5, which, continuing again with the theme of making lemonade from lemons, involves converting an extremely challenging portion of B5 that includes a 20-foot elevation change through the MTA access ramp below to a dynamic space with unique views that can be connected to the open space in creative ways that could facilitate a variety of programming. We're proposing an intergenerational community center in B6. Again, that'll be the first building to deliver, as well as flexible community space in B10. Again, the details of programming and operation haven't been finalized, But we envision that these facilities could provide a variety of community services like senior care, childcare, and job training, among others. With that, I'm going to transition back to Joe.
Yeah, so what we've walked you through today is what we think is a feasible, more resilient Atlantic Yards, which can be built because it is sort of intellectually honest about the constraints of the site, but also because the biggest subsidy provider to this site is Greenland, bar none. We're already down the road and having conversations with folks like the CWE, the Consortium for Workers' Education, about making sure that we have the right types of community services in here. So this is not just housing. We've prepared 2 renderings, and I want to emphasize 2 things. These are not design. They're still a design process. We actually asked KPF, our architect, to prepare these renderings to give you a sense of the scale, because I think it's hard to actually envision these things when there are holes in the ground with a rail yard underneath them. But this is from B6, sort of looking to B7 Carlton, and going to the next page. This is looking across B8, right? These are the moves that we've made, which we think makes this kind of a development, not just for the folks who are lucky enough to live in the building, but for the community as a whole. And we think with what we've come up with today, it's been a 9 months to a year, a lot of work, a lot of iteration. It's a better Atlantic Yards than we had before. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll entertain questions. I think I'll kick it off. You alluded to this a little bit when you started, and this is going back to the unrestricted housing program, and you alluded to this a little bit in the sense of talking about the demand, talking about the number of applications from moderate income households, and can you put that can you give us a little more context for that in terms of not just within Atlantic Yards, but in this sort of, let's call it downtown and Brownstone, Brooklyn, as a whole, in terms of what the supply has been able to, what the demand of supply has been able to thus far, and what holes there are.
Sure. So if you actually look at, and this is HUD data, happy to send it to you and you can distribute it as you would see fit. You can actually measure families, households who are experiencing rent burden. If we look at these community boards today, right, and you look at moderate income, just so everybody is aware, is 81 to 120. People who fall into that would be like a bus driver, a nurse, a teacher, an electrician, right? You have between 25 and 30% of those households experiencing rent burden, right? When you look at the percentage of income restricted housing in these community boards that have been built, so if we go and look at HPD and HUD websites, we've really built no income restricted housing for those households. We've actually built a lot of middle. We built a lot of low and very low, but we've kind of missed those households. And there's various reasons for that. Part of it was previous tax abatement programs weren't really programmed the right way for various reasons. Part of it was developers just made more money pushing everything into the middle, which is more like 150 to 170, 130. And so what we've done here, if you look at, for example, the 120% of AMIs in our illustration, out of 1,250 units, that's approximately 150 units for moderate income. When you look at, for example, the community engagement report and this kind of constant, we heard this from everybody. This was across race, income, zip code, community board. You can kind of slice the data lots of different ways. We need more variable income. I think it's very clear in New York City. But you also need more moderate income. And I think that's especially acute today. And the reason you're getting those responses in the community engagement report is because of that. You actually, and I never thought I would say this, but you can actually go to Norman Oder's blog. And he actually did an overview of the housing lottery on 535 Carlton. So this isn't the community boards. This is actually Atlantic Yards. And when you look at that particular development, there were 5 moderate income units. It's a full affordable development at 5 moderate income units. They had 15,000 applications. Right. The only class that had slightly more applications was actually low income, but I think they had 150 units, but it was right on top. Right. So I think there's a perception, partially because of what sort of some folks did, or City Radnor and others, which is more like 165. Remembering the market rents here are like 155 to 170, depending on bedroom type. So 165 is basically a market rate unit. Right. that moderate and middle don't work. And what we're really seeing, and I think you're seeing this in New York broadly, but here especially, sort of that 100 to 120 really does, need to be filled. If you actually look in these community boards, I think it's like 6 or 7% of total income restricted housing has been built for those categories. So that's our thinking.
Sure. Any, let's first go from the board. Are there questions?
On slide 5, you had a footprint diagram that you showed. Can you put that?
People state who they are when they ask questions. Is that possible?
Sorry, Mitch Corby. Thanks. Yeah, it's on page 19. Yeah. So, maybe give us what's in between these two buildings. Is that open space? What is that area in? I'm colorblind, so I can't tell you the color. But what's in between those two? I guess footprints. What am I looking at?
Blue.
Yeah, thank you. Blue.
Yeah, it's likely a podium,
Oh, I see.
right? And that podium would include, retail uses as well as potentially some parking. There could be an opportunity to program the roof of that podium as well, but we haven't gotten into the design aspects of this yet. But that's generally how it works. 2 towers above a podium.
But it's the podium. The podium itself would be roughly townhouse.
Yeah, townhouse scale. Again, speaking like as Joe had mentioned, we're trying to articulate the podiums to kind of keep that Brooklyn scale.
So it's about 30 to 40 feet.
40 to 65 feet, something.
Right. So then and then the towers begin at that.
Yeah, but again, none of the
Between the towers, it would be a raised open space of some sort.
correct. And again, the details of this haven't been finalized. We haven't gotten into design yet, but that's generally the thinking.
Thank you.
And what's the percent lot coverage for those two buildings?
It's a good question. We can get back to you on that specifically. I mean, just eyeballing it, it looks like a little over 50, 60%.
Yeah, yeah, 60%, something like that, maybe. Okay.
So the gray part is.
Podium is 100.
Podium is 100% of lot. Well, it's not 100% because you're not going to cover the Bears Garden.
Bears Garden is a separate lot.
All right, fine.
I was just trying to understand your question, your answer to his question. He said roughly 56% of the.
You're gonna have to talk louder.
Joe.
Oh,
Joanne,
Yeah.
could you raise your voice and?
Oh, sorry.
Do you have a question?
Well, I was just trying to understand his answer.
Okay, go ahead.
Question, which was the lot coverage. And he said roughly 56%. And I was wondering what is that on the
I
picture?
think he said roughly 50-60%, something.
50 to 60.
50 slash.
Covered the question to relate to the towers, which is the part shaded in gray. So that's how.
Thank you. I just wanted to refer you.
The podium is actually much higher.
Okay, Ron.
It's actually 100% of the lot coverage.
With the podium,
Up to
yes.
60 feet.
With the podium.
With the podium, yes.
Gibbs' question went to the towers, I think.
That's a building when you
Yes.
walk down the
Yes,
street.
but Ron, Gibbs' question went to the towers. So he's not, it's.
Again, I understand the
responsive.
podium is 100% lot coverage on this site.
And it should be understood because that's a building. All right.
Of course, yeah.
And the real question I have is, to what extent do you believe that a family can live and function at that site? Since 30% of the units will be 2 bedrooms or more, and a significant number of the family size units that will be developed, particularly in the early stage of development. How do you see a family raising kids function on that site?
Well, I mean, we're in the business of delivering, viable residential communities for not just single professionals, but for families as well.
That's a joke.
Yeah,
Sorry, I said we're in the business of delivering viable community facilities and community residential communities to accommodate not just single professionals, but families as well. And I think the key to that is some of the things that I mentioned during the presentation, the ability to access open space, the connectivity into retail with essential services, safe streets with mobility amongst those streets.
what about elevators?
Elevator, right?
No, but I mean, but the elevator is going to be designed and in a certain way that's different because it's a residential building.
I think that there's and we've had some discussion.
Yes.
I think that there can be perception that vertical living is negative for families because the way that tall towers used to be designed actually was negative for families. And when you look at certain of those studies, vertical living with the appropriate layouts right? So a 2-bedroom layout for 2 roommates is actually different than for a family, right? Or a 3-bedroom layout. With access to open space, with access to amenities, with access to safe streets, shared streets, as we talked about here, and with elevators with appropriate wait times, and we have good elevator consultants, can be very successful for families. I also think we're in a situation in New York where, if families didn't really want vertical living, not every family has to live in these buildings. I think a lot of families will actually fight in the lottery to win, to live in these buildings, because it is so centrally located to so many things, especially a transportation hub.
Mark,
Where
are the entrances? Can I finish my question?
okay, you can have a follow-up.
Could you do a rendering of that podium space with those towers casting shadows over that site in a similar way you did on the other sides? And it will be completely different. Will you do a wind analysis to make sure that you're not setting up a wind corridor on that podium? And what it will be impact on both Pacific Street and the adjoining areas by those buildings beyond. It's a very tricky site.
Agreed.
You need to render it,
Yep.
a plan and an elevation, but it's going to be a lot harder to even do the kind of eyeshadow or drawings that you've done over here, which I guess are almost to scale. I'm not quite sure. But if you did these renderings on that site, you're going to find out a completely different set of conditions that exist on that podium.
Agreed. No, it's a different site.
I think Mark was.
Where are your entrances? Okay, I hate the request. I know most of the people here, the people I don't know, I think get names if you don't mind when they ask a question.
Oh, sure. My name's Mark Yar.
Thank you.
Where are your entrances? First question.
So we're thinking about the residential entrances along Pacific Street. We actually have a requirement. We mentioned the PC Richards requirements, which will drive retail entrances along 4th Avenue and Atlantic Avenue. You could then have additional retail entrances on Flatbush Avenue.
And how do you manage the question of sort of folks crossing Flatbush Avenue to the open space in the broader site?
Well, I think there's a broader discussion with DOT going on around changing the public realm here generally. That's something that we're involved in. We don't control that, but something that we intend to be a positive force to push for. And we know there was actually money allocated recently to study Atlantic Avenue and how that could be improved. We also have kind of thoughts, not just around Site 5, but also the platform sites about how the public realm could be improved to make it safer and more hospitable so people would want to be there.
All right. Flatbush Avenue is kind of a moat.
Yeah.
That's a rough site. It's a rough street to navigate.
How they do after they get the bus lanes done.
Are there any more board questions? Yeah, Kip, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I have a few questions, starting with Site 5. So we talked about the residential entrances. You mentioned the loading dock would be below grade. Where is the entrance to the loading dock right now in your plans?
So we have it basically going in on Pacific Street into the building.
Where and what part of the block?
So it's not fully planned. We're actually showing it here near 4th Avenue. You can see the curb cut.
Well, I think as some people may know, DOT has proposed to change the direction of that block of Pacific Street so that it's heading north instead of south. Yeah. West, depending on, it's east-west. Okay, so it's heading to the west, and can you talk about how that may affect the loading dock?
I mean, we basically check the clearances, and any truck that we would expect to service a building like this can actually make that right turn.
Make the right turn off of Flatbush onto Pacific, and then get into a below surface loading dock.
Correct.
And it's just worth mentioning that, the loading of these buildings, these are tall buildings.
Louder.
Sorry. I said it's just worth mentioning that, with respect to the loading of these buildings, the specific design hasn't been finalized yet, right? This is something that will be studied extensively during the design process. These are concept designs that just generally show massing and layouts, not, precise locations of various infrastructure and loading and things like that.
Okay, Ethel.
Yes, thank you. So Pacific would head west and it's going to be a shared street between.
We would like it to be a shared street potentially. We don't control it. The DOT controls it.
Okay, so it's partially residential and partially commercial with the commercial deliveries happening at specific hours. How's that going to be done?
So we would work through that, but generally these would be done during business hours. We also would be getting the trucks in through a loading bay, so they wouldn't be idling kind of on the street and disturbing people.
Yeah, you had another question.
Yeah, can we maybe do a little bit of a dive into the programming for Site 5? So are you proposing increasing the entitlements for gross square footage that are in Exhibit K of the October 21 development lease? That's like 1,275,000 square feet. Is that kind of where you still are, or are you envisioning that number going up?
So we're envisioning Site 5 effectively taking the bulk that was originally on B1. So when you add those together, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it's about 1.5 million feet. This comes in at about 1.45.
1.45. Well, Exhibit K also assumed B1 and part of B2 that was unused was going over there as well, but it didn't get that big. Okay, so that's helpful. Now, in terms of the residential portion of that, what will the residential square footage be?
So breakdown on residential. Square footage.
Site 5, 1.26.
1.26 gross, not net.
Okay, and then how about the hotel? What number?
So the hotel would be an overlay. We don't currently plan the hotel. If we were to build a hotel, it would slightly reduce the residential. It wouldn't be an addition. It would be within that envelope.
Okay, so that would come out of residential, and then retail.
Retail would be the balance. I think it's about 75,000 feet.
Okay, retail plus, and so there's no community facility space planned for the Site 5. Okay. Okay, great.
Sorry, no parking.
Yeah, so the other, well, will there be parking? Because you are adding a few parking, like 260 parking spaces, right? Wasn't that in your presentation?
So
that goes there someplace.
And to add parking to upgrade to Site 5.
Okay, so that'll be a Site 5, yeah.
About 200
spaces. There's no other place you can put parking in this project, right?
Exactly.
Okay, can we do the same for 1120 and 1121 in terms of gross square feet, residential, retail, and community facilities?
Okay. Sure. Yeah, I can give you the, do you want to go by block?
Yeah, let's just go by block. At that level, I think it's good enough for now.
In terms of residential, 1120, it's about 2.4 million feet.
Okay.
And residential on 1121 is approximately 1.57 million square feet. These are gross square footage numbers, not net.
Okay.
They include things like mechanical space, corridors, lobbies, things like that.
So residential's 2,000,004 on 1121, 1,057, 1121. And how about retail?
It's about 75,000 square feet plus or minus across both 1120 and 1121. We can get back to you with the specific amount of retail on each block and each parcel, but that's about what it is.
So the combined amount of both blocks is like 75,000 feet?
Something like that.
That doesn't seem like very much.
Well, we have constrained footprints, and when you kind of start layering in lobbies and things like that, like it doesn't for retail, but we think that's sufficient. And again, we brought on experts to help us think through that at this early stage, and I think that's generally sufficient.
And the community facility space would be a part of that or an addition?
That is in addition to.
And what are you thinking that will be in it since it's an addition?
That's over 20,000 square feet.
Okay.
That's in B6 or?
It's a mixture of an urban room and B5.
Urban room and B5 and the.
Generational center and.
Yeah.
Over both blocks.
They're kind of the first two built,
So
and then flexible space on B10.
And yours, I'm sorry, but I think in your numbers in this deck, you're still looking for the 9.6 billion total gross square feet. Is that right?
Correct.
But are you actually using that all in this program?
It gets pretty close. There is some flex in that.
All right. As you know, I got a little bit anxious and started modeling myself. I could not use it all. But you guys know it better than I do. I would, I have a model that had a lot more non-residential than you're looking for here. I noticed that 9 acres of open space is 8.5 acres now. What happened to the other half acre of open space?
I would say two things. When we said 9 acres, I think it included the arena site, so we pulled that out. The second thing, and this has a bunch of different reasoning behind it, we would actually like the podiums for these buildings to be articulated and brought out a little bit. We think that will actually help kind of create what I would call more of a Brooklyn scale, like we were talking about on site 5 at the podium level. Also has kind of a big portion of wind mitigation, which we think is important. You don't really want sheer buildings here. That covers a little bit more of the acreage.
Okay, so you're increasing the footprint a little bit to account for more of a podium.
Correct.
And the podiums on the podium heights in 1120 and 1121 will be about what?
So not fully designed yet, and we think they'll kind of articulate and be different. That would probably be better urban design if they weren't all the same.
Yeah.
But we're thinking something between sort of 40 and 60 feet.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the articulation and the wind design, because the rendering doesn't look terribly articulated. It doesn't look like there's much of a setback there.
Should we put the renderings up?
Sure, why don't you do that?
I realize that those are preliminary.
Go back. Can't really see them.
Just to point this out, the gray are the tower footprints and the blue are the podium.
Can't hear you.
The gray are the tower footprints and blue are the proposed podium.
Yeah.
Here.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can start to see it in this diagram. Again, none of this has been designed, but you can start to see the street wall and configuration of that podium, as Joe mentioned, facing Atlantic.
Yeah, I mean, they look very massive in this picture to me, but I understand you're still working on it. These are not. Yeah. The last thing I want to ask you about has to do with phasing. And we've heard a couple of presentations where you talked about the desire to start with Site 5 and B6 because they're on terra firma. Can I ask, what's the financing structure right now for the platforms over the rail yards? How will that infrastructure be paid for?
So it's a mix of private capital, which we provide from various funds, as well as public financing.
So you're not going to need independent. You're not going to need to go to a third party for financing for the platforms. You'll be able to take care of whatever the state doesn't take care of, and you're comfortable with that for both 1120 and 1121, even though the state has made no commitment for 1121 yet.
There's a viable plan and a way to get there. If you're aware from some of the discussions that there are various pilot payments basically sized for this. But we're very comfortable with 1120 and 1121 coming together down the line. I think asking the state to commit budget for something that's years in the future also doesn't make sense. But we've actually done all the feasibility work on it to make sure that it will come together.
Well, I would like us at this stage, and I realize this has been on the stove for a little while, but I would like us to consider the idea of phasing this to begin with block 1121. And I'll tell you why. As confident as you seem to be about being able to finance the platform there, we still have 3 lots of platform infrastructure with 2 buildings. If it is necessary to finance it, we only have 2 buildings to burden with the cost of that. We don't have any commitment from the state yet for that. And so in the future, if we get out there, however long it takes for block 1120 to be completed and the right level of absorption to happen so we can move on to 1121, we may be in a place where it isn't as easy to finance that. And we will have brought a lot of density to that location, but without building the open space that the public was kind of promised conceptually as a trade-off for a lot of density in very tall buildings. And it might take a while before that could happen, if it ever happens. if we, conversely, if we start with 1121 now, we have some commitment from the state for financing. And we might get more in the future, and we would be building open space that is contiguous to existing open space on block 1129. We'd be delivering a very significant public benefit, a visible one, at an early stage in the project. At a time when we do have some money that we know the state is committed to us, and we remove that risk of not having the open space when we really need it, when the rest of the density comes in. So I'd really like us to consider that, because one of the problems we had in the first iteration of Atlantic Yards was that the developers decided to begin with the areas that were the least expensive and easiest to start with, and they saved the difficult ones for the end. And I think everybody knows where that led us. I'd rather us not proceed that way this time if we have a choice otherwise, and deliver the public goods that were a big part of the community engagement presentations first, not, 15 years out.
Okay. Do you have any response to that, Joe?
So we've actually looked at this from parallel. We thought about building both platforms at the same time. We did spend a bit of time thinking about, does 1121 make sense to go first? A couple of things to think about. So there's feasibility and monetary issues, which you point out. And I sort of reference this from time to time, but this project doesn't just sort of benefit from Greenland's money, it benefits from time. So if we started today, and we can't start today, but if we could start today, I think getting through like the MTA permitting process, for example, on 1121, which isn't nearly as developed as 1120. So one of the exercises we've had to do is to change things where needed, but change as little as possible, given how complicated that is. You're looking at probably, we think, 3 years. You then have a 3-year build, maybe slightly longer on 1121. You could then build on top of it. When you built on top of it, you would have to build 2 buildings next to the park with a crane swing over it. So you would probably end up closing the park. And so we actually kind of thought about that, because our original ambition was to build both at the same time. But when you look at where we sit today with 1120, partially because we've invested the funds, partially because Greenland invested the funds, you're really sort of building 1120 on the timescale that it takes to permit 1121. So the choice is not, can I do 1121 in the same timescale as 1120? It's, do I want to shelve 1120 and wait for 1121? Does that make sense? But you can't just sort of like, it's not, I don't think it's so intuitive, but especially 1121, it can't just be started on a dime.
And how does Site 5 fit in? Where's Site 5 in the permitting and the pre-development process?
So Site 5 permitting and pre-development is somewhere between 12 and 18 months. One of the key features, which is different, is that it's not on top of a rail yard. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of folks look at this and say, once I cap the rail yard, I'm done. That is not how these sites work. You have people below you, and it's very important that these things are checked off, but that makes the pre-development timelines much longer. Site 5 acts in many ways like a normal site, not quite, but pretty close.
So when would you expect to start Site 5 relative to what your plans are now for 1120?
We expect to site D6 and the platform not the same day, but in short sequence, and then Site 5 to come shortly after that.
What's shortly?
Within the same 6 months to a year.
Okay.
Ethel.
Thank you. I just want to piggyback on what Gib is reaching out for. Where is MTA in helping with the plans to sequence it in a way where we're tackling the most energy derived of problems first, where you have to put more thought into it? Where is MTA in helping you with that building over the platform?
You want me to take it? Or?
Okay. You have the most recent conversation.
So one of the challenges, right?
Mentioned in the document we reviewed earlier today.
Go first, Mel.
So part of the challenge here is sequencing. So first you have to agree to the sequencing and the timeline to have cogent conversations with MTA. Does that make sense? So we've started those conversations, we've teed them up, but until we got to a point where you have an MOU which kind of lays out that sequence,
yes,
a lot of that is sort of a theoretical conversation. I would say in general, the MTA today, they want to get this done, right? And so I think they're acting as a partner in it generally, but having conversations about things they can do to make it better has a lot to do with the development sequence. Gibbs' comment would be a great example. The changes to the MTA documents, if I was titled 1121 first, are completely different than the current sequence.
Right.
And so, they're sort of standing by, and we've started to precede those conversations. We're not going to go all the way down until we're a little further advanced.
Okay, let me rephrase my question. Has NTA helped you with mapping out an approach to doing this site first?
1120 or 1121?
1121.
They have not helped us map out that approach. We have discussed it with them.
Yeah. We have an ongoing working group with the MTA technical team where our engineers are constantly meeting, going over. And the great thing is we've got a lot of continuity with the MTA team. So their project managers have been on the site for a very long time. They understand all the ins and outs.
One last question on that issue. Has MTA put it in their budget to do that help?
We pay for it. Yeah. Great thing about interacting with the MTA is you pay for everything. It's very simple. They let you know how much it costs later.
Okay.
So the way it works, right, is because we are effectively the buyer. Atlantic Yards is the conveyor of air rights effectively above an MTA claim, a rail yard. We effectively, and our consultant teams effectively work together to get to those sign-offs. But we actually, so part of the cost of the platform are actually paying the MTA for air rights and actually paying, rightfully so, for the right safety oversight and flagmen and things.
That's what I'm asking about. Okay.
And that's in the budget.
Ron?
In relation to that last point, is MTA going to waive some of their work requirements that are extremely costly, according to a discussion I had with another developer who had to deal with MTA? And feather bedding going on in terms.
That's an ongoing discussion that we're having. I would say that the MTA through this process wants to help get this built. I think that people who haven't interacted with the MTA sometimes think it's feather bedding, but a lot of what it is, people don't understand, they work for the NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board. So that's not even New York, that's the federal government. And they have certain requirements they rightfully cannot waive when you have basically cranes swinging over people's heads. And so we're very good at talking to them about how to make it more efficient. But just to be very blunt, when you interact with the MTA, it is very expensive, right? And so we want to go and make sure we deliver an efficient project, but also a project that gets delivered under time and doesn't start and stop. And there's kind of a balance to that.
I think we have time to take a few questions from non-board members. I'll start with an elected official. Comments.
You go. You ask your question, though.
Okay, go ahead.
Comments from the public.
Well,
Not questions.
not questions.
Comments.
Comments.
You can make a comment, then they can respond.
And I've been reined in by our attorneys and please make them in the form of comments.
Okay.
Can't ask.
Thank you for the presentation. It's great that we're finally at a place where we can talk some more details and that we can do so publicly. I think that's super helpful. Okay, so I guess I'll make my questions in the form of comments. I think it would be really helpful in the presentation to see the affordable housing units for phase 2 in addition to what has already been delivered, bring those numbers together. Because based on what you've shared, the overall affordability between what has been built and phase 2 is 30% affordable across the board instead of 35% affordable. So unless I'm missing something, it would be helpful to understand how that change happened, considering this project has always been 35% affordable. And that's not something anybody has indicated would be a decrease. So that's one. And then the other, I appreciate that you all are trying to expand the number of AMI vans that are in the project. I would just say, though, that the greatest need is not, in the 100 to 120% of AMI, not to say that there's not need there. But when you really do look at the rent burden data, it doesn't support that statement. And so similarly, I would request that we look at the affordability levels. Again, what was built in phase 1, what is being proposed for phase 2, and compare that to the original MOU with Acorn. Compare that to information about more recent rezonings. where at least 10% of all the units are at 40% of area median income. I think it would be good to conform essentially with mandatory inclusionary housing. If you want some modification on that, then I think that's worth the conversation. But I think the biggest effort should be to try to conform with what the city currently does. And then anything above and beyond, like if you want to go beyond that, the 81 to 120, then that to me should be beyond MIH. And I understand that that might trigger some additional need for public subsidy and things like that. But like, I'd rather have that conversation, but start as MIH as the foundation of what should happen. And then, this presentation didn't really talk about accountability. I mean, obviously we have a current contract that, didn't become reality, and we have, Fifth Avenue Committee and many other members of Brooklyn Speaks negotiated a $2,000 per month liquidated damages for every unit of affordable housing that wasn't built, which is $1.7 million every month in liquidated damages. And so obviously those haven't been paid, and I know you all, made a contribution towards the trust fund as kind of like a good faith effort as part of this, which again is helpful. But I would love to see the details connected to ensuring this actually gets built, and it not just be like a cost of this doing business, but real incentives for making this happen. If we're giving 5, 10, 15, or 20 more years, whatever it's going to be to actually deliver this, then I think we have to ensure that the public is getting the benefits in real ways, whether it's the affordable housing or the open space. So those are primarily my comments at this time. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Joanne.
So thank you. I would say that I concur with Michelle's comments with regard to some of the questions that have been raised. I also have some questions about the density and the public realm, right? Particularly on Site 5. There's no there, right? It's a very small site. You're talking about now 1.45 million gross square feet of residential space. Brooklyn Tower, which I just want to say annoys me very much. We're going to use that as an example. It is really a one-off, unusual kind of thing, but it has an FAR of roughly 15. If Site 5 is 1 million square feet or more, maybe 1.25 after you deduct the non-usable square feet, you're talking about an FAR of 25, which is more dense than anything else. And there's no public realm there. There's no open space there. It's unfair if a family is living at Site 5 to expect them to schlep over to what someday may be the Garden of Eden that we were promised 20 some years ago, right? So that's a big concern I have, is the livability. Obviously, this is the problem of having a memory, and that is Pacific Street used to go that way, right? Then, because it was a mitigation for Atlantic Yards, the MTA made you go towards Flatbush so you could turn onto Flatbush, right? And now you're talking about flipping it back again. So I don't know how that.
We're not talking about that.
Well, that's what somebody was talking about.
DOT is planning that.
DOT is talking about a lot of things right now, some of which have worked out and some of which have not. But that is a concern because you're then going to be bringing a lot more traffic. And if you're having entrances there for the parking lot and for deliveries, which is good, they're off-site, but you got to get in there, right, somehow. I'm just having a hard time seeing how that all happens in what is really a very tiny space. And you can't take the Bears Garden unless you work out some deal there, right? Because they have that deeded to them. So, Site 5 is a sticky wicket. It was never programmed, really. And so I think the timing and what happens there is a very big deal that needs to be addressed. And I think the community needs to be brought in to deal with these issues, because community does care about where is the entrance. How are they going to walk by if you got trucks coming? A lot of the complaints on the Barclay Center was the loading docks that they said would be more than enough. And the first show that came overwhelmed the loading docks, right? If you have a circus there, you need 15, loading docks kind of thing. So my obviously big concern is that we get this done, right? As you know, my concern about public financing has been that we achieved the affordability that was at least the affordability that was originally promised. And this proposal doesn't quite make that, right? We do know that the crying need for housing in this city is mostly at the lower ends. It's not as remunerative to build that. That's why they keep getting less and less and less, and we keep being dug into this hole. I could blame Ronald Reagan, doesn't do me much good. And I think that we need to have many more conversations that are more interactive with community. The people who went to those meetings were the people who kind of live in the area. It's already been gentrified. We've already lost 25% of the African-American population from those committee boards. And so it's a snapshot. It's not really an indicator of community and the people who are here and the need for housing that's here. So those are just some of my comments. I do agree with the question about wind. That was something came up in the group. I was at both of those groups in those public presentations. Wind is a big issue in that area, always was. So you're in a site that came with the crosswinds of Brooklyn, not just the crossroads, right? And it's bad already. And so that's a very big issue. And I do want to say that I think any way that we can do 1121 first would really make a difference, because nobody believes they will end up with the open space. Nobody believes this will be built. It would go a long way to ensuring that it gets built. And again, that accountability needs to be real and not make believe. I think that's something that the community would endorse. I haven't done a survey, but I'm pretty sure that would be a concern. So I thank you for the opportunity to comment. And I
think Mitch has a question.
Tired of hearing from you.
Thank you, Joanne.
Yeah, I just have an observation, Mr. Chairman. I think it was mentioned earlier, but 395 Flatbush Avenue, recently approved by the city council, that went through Euler, is taller. I think it's 840 feet tall. And also, of course, the wind analysis will be conducted as part of the environmental review process for this project. That'll have to be assessed, as it should be. And I'm sure there'll be part of the secret.
What's the FAR?
Mitch.
I'm sorry?
What the FAR is in that building?
I believe it's
not just height.
I think it's 18.
18. Okay, well,
22 all in.
22?
It's in the 20. That's the zone.
Well, yeah, residential is more impact, so that's why I'm more concerned about it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Puka.
Want to go before me? Okay. All right. Robert Puka, member of Community Board 8. I live at 535 Dean Street for the last 25 years. I just want to correct something right off the bat. This project, the bulk of the project is not in downtown Brooklyn. It's in Prospect Heights. Please don't say downtown Brooklyn. The people of Prospect, we personally get very offended by that. The second thing I want to say is, you said the project's a no-brainer. And the reason why it's a no-brainer, with all due respect, the reason why it's a no-brainer is because you're going to make tons and tons of money. That's the second thing. The third thing is you put up there's going to be a town hall in July. That's in the middle of the summer. I guarantee you the participation at that is going to be minimal. Most people are away. It's a terrible idea to have that in the middle of summer. As far as the survey was skewed. The people that answered that survey, and again, I'm saying this with due respect, this is done. It's all business, no problem. The way you set up the community engagement, the way you set up the survey, it was all skewed for what you were looking for. You talk about transparency. There is that all these pictures. If it wasn't for a journalist like Norman Oder, if it wasn't for a gentleman like Gib Flaconi, we wouldn't have any money. We just have pictures of buildings in blue. There's no views from the sidewalk. There's no views compared to the other buildings. This project is so dense. It would be the densest project in the United States. There's nothing comparable to it. And we just had some conversations about the wind. I don't know if you guys have walked there now. It's basically dangerous. For someone crossing on Atlantic Avenue and 6th Avenue, It's just a massive wind tunnel. They built the buildings, without even thought of wind. I know this gentleman over here, I forgot his name. He mentioned that there's an EIS. The EIS, excuse me, it's BS. It's a bunch of BS. It's done by KRM, the same firm who does it for all of them. That firm is designed to come up with the answers that the developers want. It's not based upon the community. There is nothing in this plan to stop it up. Nothing in this plan to stop these developers, once they get the zoning approved, to do what Prokof did, to do what everybody else did. To basically get the zoning and then they switch it and they sell it to somebody else and make a nice, huge profit. There's nothing in this plan is stopping it. Second thing is, if some of this money, this 175 million that was done by the state, if some of that money can go, we need, and whenever this gets built, the people in the community, what they're looking for is problems, real-time problems, someone to correct those problems. We've never had any type of enforcement unit with any developer so far. So we need some sort of someone when the lights are on in the railroad on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, someone you can call immediately in real time that correct those problems. And correct me if I'm wrong. You said the biggest people that have put the money in so far has been Greenland. As far as I know, it's New York State taxpayers. There's already been subsidies, almost 300 million, and now you guys already got another 175, maybe it's close to 500 million. So we're going to be at the end of this project, this New York State taxpayers pilots between direct money between city state. It's going to be almost $750 million of subsidies. So it's not Greenland, it's not anybody. And again, once again, last thing I'm going to say, the biggest winners so far with this project has not been the community. The benefits the public has received have not received any of the benefits we're supposed to receive. The biggest winners have been a Russian oligarch billionaire, and now we have a Chinese billionaire. These are the people that have made the money at the expense of the community. And the last thing I'm going to say is, I don't know.
Wrap it up, Mr. Buchan.
I don't know what the money is that the ESD has chose not to collect at the fines that Michelle was talking about, $1.7 million a month. It's probably up to almost, I don't know what's up to 200 million. That money could have been used right now to build affordable housing on Atlantic Avenue with the 8 map. That money could be used right now. So I urge the state, collect the fines. You're not going to get sued. Collect the fines. They have the money. Thank you very much. I appreciate letting me speak.
Is there anyone else from the public? Sir, by yourself.
Yeah, I'm Rich Mantel, Vice President of Middle Schools for the UFT. So we represent about 200,000 members, 30,000 paras, over 80,000 teachers, and housing affordability is a real problem for our members. And I just want to make sure I have some of the numbers right. So it would help, the Atlantic Yards deal would help teachers at every stage of their career, from experienced educators in the 120% AMI band who we need to retain because we do have a very high turnover rate, unfortunately. For those just starting out, salaries in the AMI band. So this is a real issue. We support AMI levels that reflect what educators actually earn. It's about affordability. And that is a real problem. I can't say that enough. Problem for our members, problem for our students. 1 in every 7 students is homeless. A lot of them being forced out of the city. And the fact that also 30% of the units, I believe, are family-sized, we applaud that as well. So we are in strong support of this proposal.
Thank you. No. Sir.
I just wanted to piggyback off of that also. My name is Devon Lomax. I'm with the Painters Union. And, housing is a problem in our membership. A lot of our members, when they start out as an apprentice, if you don't know about an apprenticeship program, they start out, making between $15 and $25 an hour. They fit in that 50% AMI income, but in the apprenticeship program, you get a raise every year. So by the time they're a journey person, they're up in that 120 AMI range. And if they have a spouse that's also could be a teacher, could be a janitor, they make too much money for that deep affordable. While we do need that type of housing, our members in construction, they do pay taxes, and we want this project to move forward. Our members, again, trying to struggle to find housing. They don't have their parents' houses or their parents' houses. It's tough for them. We don't want our members to leave New York City. And that's why we support this project. And so I really want you guys to consider thinking about those income levels. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is David Caravalloso. I'm the president of the New York City Carpenters Union. And I also want to piggyback on what Lomax has said. I want to read up something into the record. So the New York City District Council has been around since the 1900s. We were established in the year 1900. New York City, as the five consolidated boroughs, been around since 1898. So the carpenters have been part of the city from the very beginning. We have a vested interest in the future of this city, and we have a vested interest in the future of Brooklyn. This deal ensures our future, ensures the future of the community as well. We've been building here for 126 years, and I hope that in the future, 126 years from now, the future president of the Carpenters Union is talking about this program. This deal delivers units the carpenters are eligible for every stage of their career. So as an apprentice, 50% of the AMI. As a journey person who's journeyed out, is raising a family, 120% of the AMI. So that affordability is extremely important to our members. Atlantic Yards will allow working people to keep living in the communities that they help build. The housing crisis is at the top of everyone's mind. This deal combats the crisis directly and indirectly. Directly by delivering thousands of mixed income units, indirectly by helping city paying the trades workers who are needed to actually build these projects. New York is becoming increasingly unaffordable. And if a carpenter can't make a living in New York City, he's going to go to a city where he can make a living. And if he can't make it in construction, he'll find another industry. Carpenters are resourceful. They'll find another industry to make a living in, whether that's here or in another city. From 2019 to 2025, the construction workforce has dropped by 12%. We're at a risk of losing the people who build this city. And it's a real issue. If people can't afford to live in the city, they're going to move out. How are we going to build affordable housing if we can't retain the people that build it? Sure. So on a personal note, it's been forgotten that the trades, the unions, we built thousands of units of affordable housing through the Mitchell-Lama program. I mean, middle and low-income housing was built, financed by labor unions through programs I mentioned, Mitchell-Lama program. I grew up in this city. I still live in this city. I'm a dinosaur. I'm a endangered species. I still live in Manhattan. I don't know too many people who spent 20 years on their tools who live in Manhattan. It's been sterilized. That's not the story that I'd like to see for Brooklyn. I'd like to see Brooklyn have people who grew up in the city, who work in the city, live in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think
My name is Adi Espinal with the Laborers Union, and I want to piggyback again with my brothers of union said, Lomax and David. Our laborers build the city that we actually take ourselves out of the job. We build it, right? And this project right here is going to actually put our members to work, and that's what we need. And on top of that, we need workforce development, and this is what's it's providing. And like both Lomax and David said, I don't want to just repeat or redundant, but we need more projects like this. Housing is something inevitable, and our members also would love to live in a city that they work and want to raise their family. So we really want to see this project moving forward, and I hope that this could be an outcome for everybody. Thank you.
Briefly.
Very briefly, Cirrus Workforce Housing. Do you make commitments to your trainee staff to have housing in the project?
So from a fair housing perspective, you can't make commitments to give housing to any particular group.
And why not?
Fair housing.
No.
All right, you know what? We're not going to get into housing law. Before I entertain a motion to go into quick question.
I just want to make sure everybody knows that this housing will come about in 2040.
In a minute.
Ron, that's
understand.
You can say that. That's
not. I agree with the folks.
No, but that's
spoken. I think they're really important. but the idea of housing has to be linked to the speed that it's being brought up on.
Yeah, no, the timing of delivery is important, but it's going to be a more complicated answer than that.
And
when it ultimately is able to be made public.
And a commitment to maintenance.
Before I entertain a motion to go into executive session, because we do have some work we need to do with passion, I just want to make a personal note that this is a day we've been waiting for a long time. In terms of having a plan of this specificity and forward-looking plan. People may have issues with it, but I hope there's a shared feeling in this room that we're glad we're at this stage of having a plan for the next phase of this project. I've been involved with this board since its inception in 2015 and have been waiting for this day for quite some time. I'd like to just acknowledge all the effort that went into getting us to this point on the part of agency ESD staff and the development team staff and their advisors and also members of the community who contributed through the community engagement process. A lot of the ideas that went into getting us to this day, which is hardly, this is just a step toward another very long process. But I think it's important to acknowledge that, and I want to thank everyone for their efforts, their respective efforts in getting us to this point, including members of our board as well. I will now entertain a motion to conduct an executive session pursuant to paragraph H of section 105 of the New York State Open Meetings Law to discuss negotiations with the project developer regarding the memorandum of understanding and development of project property project, there's the wording here is not correct, which may substantially affect the value of that property. So do I have such a motion? So moved. Is there a second? Okay.
On what grounds are we really doing this? Because we had an executive session last time, and I don't think anything that came up in that executive session needed to be in an executive session. I think even the documents we read today, there's nothing that addresses the issue of the value of this that might be competitive.
Okay, Ron, you can vote against the motion if you.
That we get clarity on why we're going into executive session. I agree with you. I really think that the work that the development team has done has been terrific and appreciated to this point. But I can't see why we can't discuss the elements of that MOU.
Because first of all, we're talking about an MOU that's still in draft stage and in the process of being negotiated. It does contain some sensitive information.
Qualifications as to why it's going into executive.
Yeah, well, we're going because it's discussing an ongoing a document that's under ongoing negotiation about a real estate transaction. I mean, this is the heart of the executive session provisions of the Open Meetings Law. It's right in the heart of it. I agree with you that I will say there were aspects of our discussion at the last executive session that probably could have been aired publicly, but it's hard to slice and dice that
any elements
in advance.
That's the rule.
Yes, I think there were. As chair, I'm gonna state a finding to that effect. Yes, absolutely.
This is not an auction. Otherwise, we'd be able to put everything out on the table.
Right.
After I spent 20 years doing contracts for the state, it's not an auction.
Okay. So we have a motion that's been seconded. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ron, anyone else? Okay, motion carries. We're going to go into executive session. I don't know exactly for how long. And when we come out, take time. Yeah.
The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return. The board has entered executive session. Please stand by. The meeting will resume when they return.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to the meeting of Atlantic Yards Community Development Corporation. We've concluded our executive session. I will note for the record, no votes were taken during the executive session. We, just in terms of what occurred, we had a presentation by BJH Advisors, I think is the name of the organization, concerning their an economic analysis, financial analysis of the feasibility of the development proposal. And then we had an extensive discussion of the draft MOU and certain provisions that are in that. And again, no votes were taken with that regard, but it was a full and frank exchange of comments and questions. So I think at this point, I mean, this is technically the point in the meeting when we would accept public comment. We had an extensive public comment session before we went into executive session, but I would open the floor for any additional public comments at this time. Does any member wish to make any? Okay, all right. Well, I'll take a committee comment. Brief.
Just, this is very brief.
Yeah, we're under some time.
This goes to the affordability levels that we're looking for in the project. Right before we broke for the executive session, we had several public comments from folks representing various unions in support of housing at this project, which I think all of us support strongly. I just did a little bit of research during that break, and one of the people who spoke was from the UFT. The median income for UFT employees looks like $99,000 in New York City. Another representative of DC9, the painters, spoke. Median income for members of DC9 is $45,000 to $59,000 in New York City. Representative of the District Council Carpenter spoke. Their median income for their members is $73,000.
Individuals, not a household.
I'm talking about individuals. And
Sorry, this is the average.
median income.
Individual.
A representative of the laborers spoke as well. Median income for the laborers is $43,000. So I believe these are the income levels we need to support in this project. I'm strongly in support of these income levels. And I hope that they're a stronger part of where we finally end up with, what we finally end up with.
Thank you.
One last request.
Yes.
Is it possible to ask the employer or the trainer for these workers, these construction workers, to assign them some rights to the apartments that are going?
I don't believe it. So.
No. We can get you the more on the fair housing law.
I can read the fair housing law. I'm asking if this can be negotiated. In the comment, I'll put it in writing.
Yeah.
Okay. So nothing further. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. And motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you for running over time as well. I appreciate it. I appreciate your time.